Hey, welcome everybody. It's 9 o'clock. I got a lot of good questions and really excited about it. No, I have Irish heritage, I thought I'd tell you. And some of you may have heard me talk about Paddy, my fifth cousin in Belfast, but last night he called me. I was so shocked, and he had some sad news. His best friend Seamus had drowned. And I said, how did he drown? He said, oh, Tommy went to the Guinness factory, and when he was in the Guinness factory, he slipped in one of them big vats of beer and drowned. I said, he couldn't get out? And Patty said, oh, no, we got twice to go to the bathroom. So anyway, I thought I'd start you guys with a little humor for the weekend and for a Friday, and I hope everybody's excited about their past week. I'm anxious to read the Flex Friday messages that we're getting. But I've got some good questions today, and I want to encourage you to not just ask me questions for my mentor sessions, but I want you to ask me questions anytime you have a question. Just email me or message me on Facebook. I like Tom at tomblackcenter.com best. I like email best, but if you can't remember that or you can't figure out my email address, then just message me on Facebook, okay? You don't have to wait once a month to load up all these questions, and I feel like that's maybe what Allison did. She asked quite a few questions. So the first question today is on performance-based compensation. This is from Raz. A lot of us know Raz. So hi Raz, I guess you're, it's about 2 o'clock your time, right? Anyway, as a co-owner of our company, I never paid myself a salary. I relied on our end of year dividends for tax returns. But now that a large chunk of our company is getting acquired, there's no longer practical for me to do it. I've discussed this with our soon-to-be majority owner and agreed that in addition to my now smaller share of dividends, I should be getting a performance-based salary. There's going to be a base salary and a bonus paid every month based on 2 KPIs that I've been asked to suggest. And for you that don't know, KPI means key performance indicator. So he's asking me, what key performance indicators should I use to base my bonus on and my salary on? Well, since you're an owner, I think you'd be interested in the profits of the company. So perhaps a quarterly bonus based on the performance of the company in revenue and the performance of the company in profits. Now, an alternative to that would be a percentage of growth, so that if the revenue grows 5% in a quarter, 10% in a quarter, 100% in a quarter, you're getting paid on that as well. But I think it would be one of those three, Raz. It's either going to be revenue, it's either going to be profit, or it's going to be growth. Okay? So I hope that helps, and thanks for sending the question in. This is from Denzel Pryor. He says, I have a personal goal to get my business to gross $20,000 by Wednesday, August 12th at the latest. So you guys, I think, assume that I know what your business is, because all these questions make a reference to your business without telling me what the business is. Some I do know, but most of you, I don't know what your business is. And so if you ask me a question, and the rest of the mentors too, I think it would be helpful to them if you would tell them what your business is, okay? Just a learning lesson. All right. Anyway, in these challenging times of COVID, protests and riots, how would you go about connecting with mortgage loan officers, lenders, escrow agents, and title companies who are still doing real estate closings in volume during these troubling times? So if I was in a hurry and I had a proven sales system, I would go to the biggest prospects available to you. So maybe that's a duh answer, but the truth of the matter is it's the right answer. So if you have a deadline and you're trying to accomplish a high goal, then why wouldn't you go to your biggest prospects now, immediately, before this call is over, you know? And then you may ask me, how do I reach them? So I don't know what kind of response you get from emails, because I don't know what your business is, but your first thing you might do is email. And the second thing you might do is phone calls. And so there's something in selling right now, well, it's always been there, but now we've given it a specific name. It's called cadence. And what that means is a series of emails, calls, emails, calls, emails, calls. And recently, XANT, I'm going to say that again, XANT, has been doing a lot of research on cadence. And you can get these free reports, these free educational documents. They call them ebooks, but they aren't really a book. And you can go online and get those, and they will tell you about the best way to reach a prospect that you don't know. But for you that are listening, basically it's an introductory email, a phone call, a follow-up email, another phone call, an email, and you do 7 touches in a week. And if you do that, you have a better chance of getting a hold of them, and also you have a better chance of connecting with them successfully for an appointment, okay? So anyway, I hope that answers your question, Denzel. But if you have more, like I say, and I didn't do a good job on answering that for you, just email me and I'll give you a better answer, okay? Here's from Heather. Hey, Heather, how you doing? Grooming any pets lately? So Heather says, I think I'm at the point I want to start offering my company as a business opportunity. What are some of the steps I need to take, or where does one even start to branch off into different types of expansion like this? So congratulations, Heather. That's fantastic. I saw where you posted that you weren't having to do grooming yourself anymore. You'd gotten to that point, and now you want to basically set up other locations, right? So I'm just going to call it a franchise. I'm not sure that's the right legal structure because there are a lot of hoops you have to go through and a lot of money that you have to put up front in order to get the franchise documents and the registered in the states, et cetera, et cetera. But there's nothing wrong with you selling a program, not a franchise, but a program for other people like you that want to set up a pet grooming business in their city. And so why don't you go online and look at pet grooming franchises, because I'm sure there are some, and look at other kinds of franchises that are available to you to buy. Entrepreneur magazine, entrepreneur.com will have lots of those. You know, they are the franchise resource in the United States, entrepreneur.com, and see what they're doing and what they're pricing. And it's probably too long an answer for this group because it's so specific to you. But if you want to set up a call, I'll talk to you about my experience with Zavelle, which is what we're doing with a spa-like entity. Okay? Thanks. Here's a question from Dylan. I've decided to completely shift our revenue model for summer camp. Now, summer camp sounds fun, but I don't know what kind of camp it is, where it is, or anything else. So again, just give me a little background, okay? Coming up the final week of July, most of the school districts that I've partnered with is considered underserved, low-income, single-income households, and that's 33,000 plus homes. So I've shifted to a more progressive model of crowdfunding, essentially, but by the way of sponsorships from local businesses. I partner with my local chamber and have a list of 6,400 local businesses that I'm reaching out to and asking for their help to sponsor at least one child for the camp, $250. I've created an email script to send, and I'm calling also, but have actually started to consider hiring a salesperson to do the calling for me for a few weeks, if not up until we stop taking admission. Are these the best ways to go about this? I think the salesperson is a great idea to free up my time, but I also want to be financially responsible due to current revenue, etc. So, Dylan, I work with a group for 12 years called EEOG, Equal Education Opportunity Group. And we do the same thing to sponsor kids from at-risk high schools, at-risk districts, to a leadership conference. And the cost of the leadership conference is about $250. And we ask the student to get $25 of it themselves because we think there should be some financial responsibility. And then we ask for sponsorships from other people to put on the leadership conference. And the way we do it is we don't have a salesperson. We have volunteers that believe in the cause, and they solicit companies or introduce the executive director to people that can raise the money. But there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody to get on the phone and call these businesses. My fear is that at a $250 price tag, you're probably going to have to build more money than that into it to pay the salesperson. So you have $250, that's what it costs a student, but you're going to have to bump that probably $100 to pay the salesperson a commission, or at least $50. And so you've got to do the financial model. I can't help you. If you want me to look at your scripts, I'll be glad to do that. You can email them to me, and I'll be glad to make a comment on them. But in terms of hiring a salesperson, your model doesn't allow for the cost of a salesperson. So either you got to raise your price or you got to do it yourself. It's just that simple. Okay? Good. Next. When stepping into a new, this is from Leilana says, hello, when stepping into a new leadership role, what are good strategies to build trust and relationships with your team, especially if you're moving up to an administrator role with the same people you've worked with for years? For example, I've been in a teacher coach role. Now I will be their principal. I want the transition to be effective for both me and my team. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, congratulations on getting the principal job. I know you wanted to get a principal job and move up the food chain towards your, retirement in 30 years. And by the way, if you aren't thinking 30 years out for your retirement, shame on you. The statistics say that at the age of 65, only 3 in 100 Americans can pay their own bills. The rest are dependent upon family, the church, charity, the government, or some other source of income to pay all or part of their expenses, living expenses. And so what did those 3 do that the other 97 didn't? None of the 100 planned to fail, but except for those 3, they failed to plan. And so now is the time to start planning for what you're going to do when you get to the finish line. And in our society today, 70 is more likely the retirement age than 65, 75. If you want to live to be 90, the statistics say 75% of the people that live to be 90 work until they're 80. So if that's the case, you got to be thinking about that now and planning for it now. Okay? Don't say I didn't tell you so. And now back to the question. So, Leadership is an Art is a great book to read. I'm just going to recommend that book. It's by Max Dupree, and he was the CEO of Steel Case Furniture, but it's one of the most influential books on my leadership and my leadership style that I've read. And there are plenty of others too. But, if I could tell you one principle about leadership that I've learned over the years, it's this. People support what they help create. So they have to feel like they've helped create the system in order to fully support the system. And that means you build consensus. I was talking to a CEO the other day, and I said, you know what you want to do. So before you implement it, you send it around to your other leaders, and you say, I want your input on this and your thoughts about this before we put anything in place. He built consensus. And so that would be something I would suggest you do, especially with any changes, okay? Come to Nashville. Now we have a series of questions from Allison. First question, I have 2 pending possible clients. For what business, I don't know, but that's good. One could possibly be my largest deal ever. It's taken about 2 weeks for one that is still going through some things with the business and says they will sign the agreement once it settles. And the other, I've been working for the second one for a week now, and even closed a bulk order with him on his products, even though we aren't even officially working together yet. I know they both are eventually going to partner, but my question is, how do I create a sense of urgency without sounding pushy? I don't want them to say no to my services just because I asked them what they thought of the proposal and if they had any questions. Thank you for your time and expertise. Okay? So you have access to Pro Code Sales. Go and watch the videos on closing. But this controlling the sales cycle, that's the real question. So Allison, controlling the sales cycle, that means that you have to start at the initial contact. And so at the initial contact, you have a plan for getting them to the finish line. And you probably don't. Most salespeople don't, but you should. And then when you get them to the finish line, you have to have a canned, planned, practiced question. It's called an obligating question that you ask. What I teach is to say The next step is for us to go ahead and plan implementation. The next step is for us to go ahead and get the agreement okay, plan implementation, and set up the training. The next step is, and so I'm always at the end of every conversation with the prospect saying the next step is. And if you suggest the next step and they're not sold, they are going to tell you. But if they are sold, they aren't going to bother to say, yeah, I'm ready to buy. And so you've got to lead them to the finish line. And you do that by suggesting the next action that you and they need to take together. And I don't know what you're selling, and I don't really know your sales cycle, but that in general from 40,000 feet is the answer to your question. If you want to send me an email more specifically telling me about what your company does and the service and the price and the typical sales cycle, I'll be glad to get into more depth on it, okay? Thanks. Now, this one is from Kristen. Hey, Kristen. As a copywriter, what is the best way to scale my business? I currently write for online coaches who can only afford up to $3,000 with me, and very few invest in someone else to write for them. If I want to make more in the future, is it about increasing prices or about switching my niche to bigger businesses that can afford me and see the value in copy? P.S. I write everything myself and in the future would love to work with a copy editor and another writer so that I can take on more projects. So the question is, how do you build your copywriting business? Well, you build it like everybody else in this group that's building their business. You get so much business that you can't handle it yourself, and then you hire somebody else. And so how do you get more business than you can handle yourself? Well, you could raise your prices, but and I think that's a good idea. Most of the time, if you do it in small little increments, you know, if you put a frog in a pot of water and you turn on the heat, the frog will never jump out of the water. He doesn't realize that the temperature is going up so slowly. And so the point of that story, that illustration is most of your customers aren't going to mind small price increases, not big price increases. But that still doesn't make your business grow. That still doesn't get you to where you're working with a copywriter or an editor. And the only way you're going to do that is by getting more customers. So how do you get more customers? Sales. And so that means you have to get a prospect list. That means you have to get a sales talk for the approach. That means you have to, get all the things that you'll need in order to have a real business. Because right now you think you have a business, but you don't. You have a job. And until you have people working with you, that's all you have is a job. Until you have people working with you, it's not really a business, it's a job. Think about it. And so if you want financial freedom and if you want to have a business, then you're going to have to go sell something, okay? Now, next question, we're back to Allison again. How would you recommend I go about getting in front of the decision maker and actually encouraging them to respond for the companies I'm targeting right now? I've used LinkedIn to connect, writing letters, emailing them directly, etc., with all minimal results, if any. Okay? So, Allison, I've never built a successful business, and I've done several. I've never seen a successful business if they weren't selling the products online. But if business is selling a product or service to another business, and it isn't an online kind of an ordering process, the only thing that I've seen work is phone calls. And so you've got to get on the phone. And there's a very good section in Pro Code Sales on the phone approach. And there are several modules on the phone approach. And you should watch those and you should commit them to memory because they're excellent. And if you're sincere about wanting to reach the CEOs in these businesses, first of all, you have to be persistent. You just have to call a long time. So I have people that set appointments in different companies, both that I own and I work with, and those people might talk to 2 to 3 people a day, that's all. They're calling 8 hours. They're making 80 dials, and they're still only talking to 3 decision makers during the day. So it's very difficult. And then when you get those 3 decision makers, you better have it planned and memorized what you're going to say and prepared for the objections they might give. And that's the best way to grow your business. Again, Allison, I'm not selling my services, but I think you should get a sales coach. It doesn't have to be me, but if you want to grow your business, the only way you can do it is sales, and you should get somebody to help you so you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. Okay, now we are, let's see, I thought I had another question, but I don't have another question. So, I got about 10 minutes here, and I want to talk to you guys about the COVID issue, and I want to talk to you about how I think you should be thinking about the COVID issue. So, it's never going to be the same when we finally get back. It's never going to be the same. We are going to do more things remotely than we ever have. Look at the Zoom calls that have been very effective for companies, or the other kinds of live audio calls. I've done a Skype call, I've done a Zoom call, I've done several WebEx calls, I've done some team calls, Microsoft Team. But anyway, long story short is this is the way we're going to do business going forward. And so if you're not thinking about your business and how your business needs to morph in terms of this new reality, then shame on you. Start thinking. And if you have partners, talk to them. And then look for the opportunity in this COVID crisis, because there is an opportunity in the crisis. So our appointment setters at our little IT company that we have here, it's about 60 employees, 10 million in sales. We have 2 appointment setters for our salespeople. And last month, they set 42 appointments. That was the best month they'd ever had in the middle of the COVID crisis. And we adjusted our phone approach for the COVID crisis. And as a result, we engaged more people and we got more appointments. And so that was a benefit to us. I mean, there's no benefit in all these deaths and all this illness, and knock on wood, I hope nobody in the tribe gets it or has any repercussions from it, or their family gets it. But anyway, there was a benefit in that for us. Now, I work with a company called Allison's Pantry. They're in the tribe. And Allison's Pantry is having the greatest quarter of their existence, literally up 100% 1 month, and 80% 1 month, and 70% 1 month. And the reason for that is people didn't want to go out. They wanted to get their food at home. And that's what Allison's Pantry does. They deliver food at home. So, there is an opportunity in this COVID crisis for most people. And so I've said over and over again this principle: change is inevitable. The strongest of the species don't survive. The most intelligent don't survive. Darwin said it isn't those, but the ones most adaptive to change. And so in this change, figure out how you're going to adapt to take advantage of this while everybody else is sitting back going, woe is me. Well, I'll go back to work when the COVID crisis is over, And in my world, in the banking world, we found banks fell into 3 categories. One category was the bank that sat back and said, I'll be glad when this is over. The second category is the ones who decided that they would focus on their own internal operations and procedures in order to provide better service to their customers and make their operation more efficient. And the third type was the one who actually went out looking for the opportunity in the middle of the crisis and looked for an opportunity. I had one community bank president tell me he picked up 100 new customers from doing PPP loans and doing them quickly and efficiently. Other bankers were laying people off because they didn't have any business. It's the same market. It's just a matter of how emotionally and intellectually you approach it. And so this COVID crisis is going to be over, but we're going to have learned so many things about how to do business differently during this crisis. It's the American ingenuity and it's the free market enterprise. Profit is good, and profit motives drive us to figure out how to do business no matter what the circumstances are. And I want to challenge everybody that sees this and everybody in the tribe to approach it that way. What is my opportunity in the COVID crisis? So thank you very much for listening this today. I'd like to have more questions, and if anybody wants to amplify their question with me by email offline, I will be glad to do that too. All right, everybody have a good weekend. A lot of you I'm going to see out at Sean's house in the morning, so I'm looking forward to that. Bye.